Hello, welcome. I'm DinoMightyMiranda from TikTok. With me is Rena, aka Go For It.
Rock are free. I make way too long content for a way too short a platform.
Oh, you said your thing. Oh, I didn't say my thing. I'm
I'm
jealous. All right.
sorry. I didn't.
Anyway, welcome to the backup issue.
If you guys are wondering, that our very prim and proper normal recording is out the window as we are just going to hang and talk. Like, it's very funny, this concept, because it's not like we aren't casual in the main show, but essentially like a backup issue to a comic. We had our main discussion point that about like the big topic, and this issue is to talk about something, the things we didn't really get to, much shorter, much more collaborative than debate, but and
There's
more
no
casual.
Bizarros tonight.
No bizarros. We're all honest.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, everybody loves a baddie. So anyway, on the debate episode on Crisis of Infinite Opinions, we talked about whether or not side characters could break away from their main character, and we spent a lot of time talking about like sidekicks, right? And we didn't really spend any time talking about villains. And like, I would argue, I think it's easier for a villain to break away, or at least we seem to have more examples of villains that have successfully broken away.
Like the first thing, not the first thing, but the thing we realized when we were talking, signing up for this is that we have to like define what breakaway means. And for superheroes, it's very easy because superheroes have these gargantuan orbits. So like it's very easy to tell the difference between like a character that stands on their own 2 feet and a character that's always going to be a sidekick and a character in between. But like villains are never a full part of their puzzle. Their characters are literally defined as connection to other characters.
Mhm.
So what it means to break away, I don't think is necessarily the same. Like I you will have cases of villains where you go, oh, that was X's villain. But you won't necessarily have the same desire because at the end of the day, if a villain breaks away from one hero's orbit, they probably have to be in another hero's orbit anyways.
That's true. Okay. I think for my purposes, I define breakaway as they I define breakaway as if you asked somebody like just today, right, who like the hero they're always fighting is, either that person says or they say someone that like they've only started fighting in like the last, like the last 10 years.
Yeah. I think I define breakaway based off of what it isn't essentially, and that's kind of what I did for the heroes as well, where you don't break away if you think of them in that category of like X villain, right? Like Poison
Yeah.
Ivy, no matter how popular Poison Ivy is, people still think of the category as a Batman villain. Who do you want to kick off first with?
I would love to talk about, I think, one of the most successful breakaway villains, right? Like this is a character that originated as a big bad for a team book, right? Was so popular, he eventually got spun off into his own comic series for a while where he was the main character. He wasn't even someone else's baddie. And then he was just sort of like a reoccurring ghoul for a while. And now most people just assume he's either A, a free agent, i.e., not really connected to any one hero, or B, they say Batman. I'm
Uh,
talking about the man, the myth, the pathetic legend, Deathstroke.
Deathstroke has moved from a Titans villain to kind of a solo villain to
Mhm.
like Justice League villain, and I think to like a Batman villain. And I think this is kind of a failing up situation, uh, where because he fought a whole bunch of like A-listers who
Mhm.
went on to infiltrate the rest of the DC universe, he followed them, right? Like
Right.
I remember in Identity Crisis when he's fighting the Justice League he's fighting has like Wally and Kyle in it. Like
Mhm.
this is not so much just Deathstroke being someone who's now on par with the Clarks and Dianas of the world, even though he is treated like that, but the fact that his enemies now treat those people as peers. So everyone in that generation was just so successful, essentially.
I mean, I think like that's fair, right? Like I think for a very long time there was a very solid chance that Deathstroke was going to become Nightwing's like nemesis, right? Deathstroke was going to be Nightwing's Joker. You have like that whole period of time where like Deathstroke bombs Bloodhaven, right? Specifically to beef with Nightwing. Um, and then I don't know, like they just kind of backed off from that. And then I think that's kind of where the generalization of Deathstroke happened. I think also there's kind of a problem of how to use Deathstroke, right? Because like if you don't have personal beef, right, which he has personal beef with like the Titans, because he can't face himself in the mirror and realize that he was a shit father. Um, and then he has personal beef with Nightwing because again, he can't face himself in the mirror and realize he was a shit father, right? Like it's if you don't have that personal connection with him, either like through, his beef with the Titans or through his amazing ex-wife, then like his job is he's an assassin. He kills people, right? And then like you're setting up like a fundamentally boring story because DC is a little bit more rigid, right? In terms of like the heroes do tend to win. And like how does a hero win when someone is assassinating somebody, the person doesn't die. And there's only so many times you can watch Deathstroke fail to kill somebody before he just becomes lame.
Okay, so I disagree with that on two small counts. One,
Okay.
I think DC treats Deathstroke as an assassin in the same way Nintendo treats Samus as a bounty hunter, where it's like a cool thing for them to say. Like it's the same thing with like the League of Assassins, where like how often are they actually trying to assassinate people directly? Like if they do, it's some random person that doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Like narratively,
Hmm.
like it's a plot device. And like similarly, I think with Deathstroke, it's like it's fine. And then the other thing is like, well, like how many times can you write a story? I don't know, man. It's been kind of 80 years of like mostly win. I don't know, maybe it's just because I see a lot of Saturday morning like kid shows and cartoons where like you can truly get like decades of content off of and I'll get you next times. Also, I do think part of it's just as like post 90s Nightwing like fell into the Bat family,
Hmm.
all the characters who were also like on their own 2 feet, which you can see in our episode for this month, also fell into like back into their superhero orbits. And part of that is like Deathstroke, the Titans villain, came with Nightwing. Deathstroke is a good parallel to the Joker, who
Hmm.
we set up to say, like, I think hasn't broken away. No one's going to tell you. It's weird because the Joker's probably the villain that is the closest to breaking away that doesn't fit the definition of breaking away we talked about, where like he's still clearly a Batman villain. No one would ever think he isn't a free agent, but like he's got his own movie with a sequel coming out. He is the most successful like superhero villain of all time. I think this shows that like you don't need to break away to like be uber successful, but also like if you didn't know about the Joker's, the only reason why the Joker isn't considered a breakaway character is because his impact on Batman is so large that his incredible impact on the rest of the DCU is still small by comparison, no matter how annoying it is.
Okay, I mean that's a really interesting point, right? Like the Joker as like a character does have a lot of recognizability. The Joker does have like iconic storylines, right? Like iconic storylines in his own right, not just because he's like the antagonist that in someone else's storyline. Hmm.
Typically, I'm the Batman hater, and Miranda is able to balance me out here. But we're both of one mind on the Joker, so I'm glad that like we're able to give him his flowers, no matter how much I really don't want to.
Listen, all right, I think the Joker is overdone, especially when it comes to adaptation. I think it's cheap to adapt the Joker at this point, right? Almost passe, if you will, right? But at the same time, if someone if someone has something they want to say in a storyline, then like the Joker's a pretty effective character to use for that.
People keep on thinking they have a spin on the Joker, and
Mm,
you don't.
no.
It's not to say that you can't tell a good story with the Joker. You might be able to. I wouldn't read it, but like the reason why the Joker gets so many stories is because he's so popular. Everyone's like, I could do something with him. And it's like, you could, but it's been done. And you might do it better, but like maybe use that energy on like any other character in all of fiction. Even Batman. Even Batman.
Let's talk a little bit about when the Joker breaks away, right? So I avoid Joker as much as physically possible. Sometimes it's just not practical to avoid him, unfortunately, given, my shtick. But when I have read the Joker showing up in like somebody else's book, generally it's as like a little short, funny haha, right? Like he shows up in a Superman book and Superman is just like, yeah, no, found all the bombs. They make noise and I've got super hearing, so here you go, I guess. Do you need a lift?
Which is
Like, and
also
then the Joker's like having his Looney Tunes temper tantrum on like a building.
it is like the other thing I will note is despite the Joker being so wide, it is interesting to see when people don't like super like get it, right? Like I know exactly the like interaction you're talking about. And like I can imagine being a Joker fan and being like, this is a very like, why doesn't Bruce Wayne just find the bombs? Is he stupid type moment where it's like, yeah, man, you put him in a Superman book and then went, ha ha, he does nothing in a Superman book. That's why we don't put him in Superman book.
Right.
Like it's very much a like the writer laughing. I guess the first time, if you were a fan who's like, yeah, Superman versus the Joker, and they're kind of being like a literal anti-joke in terms of like, and then nothing happened. It's interesting,
Right.
but that's not what happens at this point because I think the other half of that is like he's just there. I don't know what to say. And he's doing jokery things, and we're wondering why.
Cool. Well, I mean, I guess we could talk about you know, we could talk about the villain team books, right? Because the Joker sometimes pops up on the Legion of Doom, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes.
So it is one of my favorite things when the Joker pops up because okay, if you don't know, most supervillains outside of Gotham don't like the Joker and for good reason. And so every single time he pops up in like the Legion of Doom, like it is everybody just like gritting their teeth and bearing it and trying to prevent him from like screwing them over. But at the same time, they can't tell him to leave because like he's the guy that's just gonna pop a grenade out of his pocket. And
Yeah,
it's like
like
that is comedy to me.
there's a good bit in Infinite Crisis where Alexander Luthor meets his end because he refused to invite the Joker to his new secret society. And it's like,
See?
yeah, that's the reason why we put the Joker in all these like time sensitive, like very sensitive things that he shouldn't be on. Because if we don't, he's gonna screw us over. So
Yeah.
like
He's the Maleficent of the supervillain world.
yeah, like which is like I think so good, and I'm never going to question why the Joker is there ever again. I'm never going to question why any bill. Why did you call Gorilla Grodd for this? You know this can happen. Yeah, but like if I didn't, he would rip my head off. Like it makes perfect sense why you have. Why is it that these villain teams keep on forming when you all know you're all going to betray each other? Because I need like one or two other guys who I could trust, and then everyone else is just there because if it doesn't happen, then I'm screwed, right?
Listen, all right, I wasn't originally going to invite the cheetah, but then I heard that like Wonder Woman's back on the Justice League, and you know how possessive she is. All right. Do you want to deal with her if you accidentally land a hit on the Amazonian princess? No, you don't. So we invite her.
Honestly, this time I didn't even invite her. She just showed up. Like,
Oh, God. Okay. Who's the leak in the group chat? And then the
God,
Joker just raises his little hand.
I need a workplace comedy about this now. But yeah, but yeah, like so we're talking about team books, and I think in the other episode we talked about how team books are useful for like breaking out. I think villain team books are interesting because they do something that we don't get to do for most villains, and we get to see them be around people besides their typical like partner, you
Yeah,
know?
like besides like who they're fighting.
Yeah. And that is something they get to be a supporting character in a way that they don't get to be typically, because you don't like in a typical book, you're only ever going to be interacting with like your antagonist, right? Like,
Right.
but here they get to be a supporting character to other characters on the same side as them, which they basically never get to do, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I'm going to talk about the thing I really wanted to bring up, uh, which is the CW.
Mhm.
They truly just said Green Arrow's now Batman, and there's no better presence. Here's the thing: I will defend one thing, which is everyone says I watched like 2 minutes of Arrow before I had to turn off the TV, and then I only watched it in the crossovers. All right,
Mhm.
I was a Black Lightning and Legends of Tomorrow's fan. All right, uh, and like in but like I will defend. Everyone says that Prometheus is the best villain, and I will defend that one because they didn't turn Prometheus from a Batman villain to Green Arrow villain. The comics did, and they're like, and now
He's not
he's
a fan of striking facial hair.
yeah. I mean, I'm not a fan of it either.
Oh, but on the inverse, can I talk about the best CW villain?
What?
Music Meister.
Okay.
So Music Meister starts as a Batman villain in the TV show because
Yeah.
Music Meister is not hardly in the comics at all because the concept doesn't work for comics. It is a medium that you read. You cannot hear it. All right. So the fact that Music Meister got like thrown all like got like threw up all over the CW at one point, that was a stroke of genius. But it tricks people into thinking he's much more prolific than he is.
It is just like he's an adaptation villain because like
Mhm.
he works well for adaptations that aren't comics. The thing is like so he's a Batman villain, and you could even argue because in the original show, but like because Batman's teaming up with everyone, he's also a Black Canary villain because that's who he's teaming up with in that original appearance. But in the CW, they throw him at Supergirl and the Flash, which like even in the topsy turvy world of the CW, where the Flash is Superman and like the and like Green Arrow is a Batman and like Supergirl is Wonder Woman. Like, isn't the first Green Arrow Green Lantern, not Green Arrow, Green Arrow Flash crossover like Captain Boomerang a Flash villain that they put on Arrow first? Because like they just like play musical chairs with the villains, and there is this, and I think this is a tacit admission that they didn't think that a hero had compelling enough villains, you know? Like when you make the League of Assassins and Deathstroke and Prometheus and like every villain actually just be a Batman villain, then you're just being like, we had no ideas. I think like it's like it's obscure deep cuts that they completely re-envision or Batman villains. Those are the two groups. It is the most accurate. Why was Oliver Queen trained by the League of Shadows? Why was that a thing?
Because he wants to be Batman and he'll never be Batman and it haunts
Like
him.
Oliver Queen hates Batman. Like I'm
Envy.
like, CW Green Arrow is a like comics Green Arrow villain. Like it was but and it's not just so like I think the more popular the show, the less accurate its villains were. Later Flash was pretty accurate and Black Lightning was pretty accurate, but like Legends of Tomorrow went like rampant, like which I think is they literally call it the Trinity, but whatever. And I have to say Supergirl is not Wonder Woman because she's a girl. It's because they're both from faraway lands, like
Hmm.
that's the thing. And
Yeah.
but her from an alternate universe and Wonder Woman from the mascara, who only occasionally appears and also isn't developed. And like, God, we need to treat Wonder Woman better, but that's not the point. Uh, it just doesn't match up.
No, it
And
doesn't.
it's just because they're like, hey, we hired a lot of people off of Glee. And also we hired one of the main characters of Rent. Let's just
It was also the era of the musical episode, which is an art form that has sadly gone sour as the years have progressed.
I mean, yeah, here's the thing. I like music. I literally watched Tick Tick Boom like for my birthday. It was
Mhm.
good. Don't watch on your birthday though. That's a bad thing to watch on your birthday. But um anything that reminds me of Glee is gonna give me the hives. I'm so sorry.
That is completely valid. I never watched Glee, so I don't have any bad associations. Uh, but I love the musical episode because I love fun little like original songs that are like less than 2 minutes that like I can just have on my little poppy playlist. All right. I love the Music Meister. I think the Music Meister should be in more things. I think he should have been in Legends of Tomorrow and Arrow and Gotham. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine if we had gotten a musical Gotham
Like
episode?
a Newsy style, like
Yes.
little orphan ones.
We'll call it Robins.
Can I say, what's the word? I'm thinking now because you're like, he's a really bad medium for comics. My brain immediately thought, like, what if there was like a
Oh
thing
my
that was
God. Oh my
terrible?
God. Okay, okay, we have to cut this out. We have to cut this out. We need to trademark this.
You
Because
can't be referencing cutting out things because then I actually have to do it.
shh, 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 shh. Okay,
But
this is gold. This is a gold idea. Rena, I want you to be successful. Okay. So we need to cut this out because you need to take this project and run with it.
we've
Welcome
talked.
back. We've actually cut out about 10 minutes of us building our pitch for Shark Tank. If you want to know what that pitch is, subscribe to a Patreon that doesn't exist.
So we've talked a lot about villains that we want that we've like seen in other stuff, and especially villains we don't like seeing all the time. Cough, cough, please stop putting the Joker in things. I've literally seen people who avoid the Joker have him like be in their leagues of comic geeks like thing higher than their favorite characters. Like,
Oh gosh, uh, it's the
please
Batman curse.
talk about characters that we want to see like
Yeah.
crossover. I don't think we're talking about full breakaways, right? We're more talking about just like one off, maybe two off appearances, like characters we'd want to see.
Right, right.
Um,
Like a villain character that, like they have a hero, right? And that dynamic is fine. But there's this other character that we really think they might have some chemistry with. It's superhero, supervillain matchmaking, if you will.
yeah.
My pick is the Silver Swan, aka Vanessa Capitalis. Um, she is a character, has a lot of envy in her heart, and also I think a lot of insecurity, right? Like her entire motivation as a villain is she wants that connection, right? She feels like she has this connection with Wonder Woman, and then like she gets rejected because like Wonder Woman is very respectful of people's relationships with their mothers. So like when Vanessa's mother like asks her to kind of back off a little, she listens. As adults should. Adults shouldn't hang around kids when their parents don't like them too. But but like this really hurts Vanessa. And then later when like she gets injured and then she sees Cassie Sandsmark as Wonder Girl, right? Like that's what leads to her being the Silver Swan. Okay. But like I really would like to see Vanessa as a character. I would like to see her fighting the Titans, right? Like I like that idea of like this teeny bopper villain that is fighting like teeny bopper heroes, right? And like what you can do with that because I think there are certain dynamics that you can get when it is like another kid fighting the kids, especially you want to play with like the if you want to play with like a redemption arc or if you want to play with someone going to the dark side, right? Heel face turns and turn face heel turns. So like if I could choose like like a villain to crossover, I would want the Silver Swan to fight the Teen Titans.
I think that's really cool, especially because like I was thinking of the other direction where with teenagers you can get like really catty and
Yes.
like aggressive because like teen heroes are already a concept that you need to suspend a bit of disbelief for. So you're
Mhm.
allowed to go to like levels where like everything is like exaggerated, you know? So like you can very much do like clicky bullshit, but with superpowers and lots of collateral damage.
Yeah.
Um, is there any particular Titans you want her to go up against? Because you said Titans and like I think the new Teen Titans, which are a bit old for that, but like who else? Like Damien and the gang?
I Here's the thing. I think I would like any Teen Titan group, really. I think one of the biggest shames with the Teen Titans is that they fight so many adults. Like they're teenagers. They're teenagers, all right? I want to see them fighting other kids, right?
No,
Like I want kids that are abusing their powers. I want kids who are the children of supervillains who are like finding their way. I like I want like dumb kids, like just kids who discovered that like if they blink too fast, they can crush metal, right? And they're trying to get TikTok famous, and then that brings them into conflict with the Teen Titans.
you say that, and what flashes through my head is not Titans, it's Young Justice, Super Sons, Dial H for Hero, like all these other teen groups
Yes,
that aren't Teen Titans.
yeah, like that's the thing. I
But
want, I want like you're gonna have child characters who are having like silly teenage hijinks. I want them to fight other teenagers. I don't want them to fight like a 40-year-old that's been lobotomized.
I also do. I am thinking on the other side though, the fully adult like Watley, Coriander, Donna, Dick, like the adult Teen Titans having to deal with the kid and be like, oh, so this is what this feels like.
Oh
Okay.
my God. Oh my gosh, like all of that energy and then just throwing it at the Titans would be very funny to me.
The thing is, on the other hand, like I can't imagine being a teenager and having the motivation to go just attack a bunch of adults, you know? I would need like a very young writer for this who like gets how to write teens because
Oh
I
God,
feel like
yes.
I would go like have a rocket boot roundhouse kick someone and then they immediately respond like, bro, you're beefing with a kid, and just like make fun of the fact that they are a fully grown adult and I am a child that they have to deal with. Like I
Yes.
think more teenage characters should be mean and immature like a teenager, right? More teenage characters should be bullies, in my opinion. Here, hero villain, I don't care. Like teenagers are vicious to everyone.
Yes, you get the vision. Like, all right, I do. That is what I want to see. All right. I want to see Silver Swan beefing with like Coriander and then being like, your hair is so snarled. And it's just like, oh my gosh, that is an insecurity I didn't even know I had. What the fuck?
Like constantly being called old and them being like, I'm not that old. Or being like, I'm just thinking like making fun of how Wally runs and being like, what's wrong with the way I run?
He keeps changing his gait.
My thought here, this is going to be a weird one.
Okay.
And it's might not necessarily even be my first. I really want to see, and I really didn't want it to include a Green Lantern on one side or the other, but I'm so sorry. I want to see Larfleeze, the Orange Lantern,
Okay.
interact with a legion of superheroes. And this is the reason
Ooh.
why is a couple, but like specifically, I think we've talked about this before, not on like here on like our streams, but like there is a political element to the Green Lanterns that is really weird that like is being lost on both ends. One, the Green Lanterns are so isolated and they only other interact with other lanterns nowadays. It's kind of weird to see this like essentially paramilitary unit not really interact with the wider like cosmic and galactic organizations.
Hmm.
But on the other side, they're so isolated. It's weird that other galactic like races and organizations nowadays never interact with the Green Lantern Corps. And on the and part of that, the biggest part about that is Larfleeze is so exclusively a Green Lantern character, and he's a horrifying concept. He's an entire Lantern Corps in one like person. So I'm immediately thinking there's some like true cosmic horror to the idea of like one very like selfish, very self-centered, very like primal like person with the power of not only like an entire like universe spanning, like universe endangering, like power battery, like Green Lantern Corps, but
Mhm.
also one that can consume you. That when he wants something, will like take it. So I want Legion of Superheroes. The legend superheroes are now legends, right? The
Mhm.
world light is forever done. We've like fallen into mystery. Larfleeze was already incredibly obscure. It's just this force, right? It is this like core that you only notice as it passes through systems and like takes things. And it is not something that like you can like fight or like you can like hassle. It is not something you like negotiate. You need to like move it out of its way and convince it to not come to your system. And I'm thinking like the Great
Oh my
Darkness
God.
type thing where they treat it like Darkseid like this mythical figure, but like with Larfleeze.
Oh my gosh, I like that. I just in my head, I was just like, it's like a Godzilla movie.
Yeah, like because it's terrifying because like I think Larfleeze is treated like a joke a whole lot, and
Mhm.
that frustrates me. One, because I don't like one-dimensional characters, but also because like there's a lot of potential there of Larfleeze being an intimidating villain, and not an intimidating villain that necessarily needs like so many complexities, but has something that the Green Lantern Corps doesn't really have, which is like this naturalistic villain. And I don't necessarily need a Green Lantern book, but in a Legion book where like you have a big enough cast of characters that you don't necessarily need your villain to be Shakespearean, but
Mhm.
yeah, like a Godzilla movie like that.
Yeah.
It's
Like it's
just
just a force. It's not anything that you did. It's just a thing you now have to deal with.
yeah. And you throw in some the like loss of self that comes with being consumed by the like Larfleeze horde and things like
Mhm.
that, and the like infinite knowledge. You could even have it be like, oh, many people go to, I think
Mhm.
Okara is the name of his place. Like many people go there for like lost tomes of knowledge but don't return. Like there's so much potential there. And I think Legion, with its themes of superheroes inspiring the next generation and the stories we're reading now becoming the legends of that era, is like perfect for that. But yeah,
Well, no, like absolutely, because it's I think like the only thing that separates Larfleeze from like cosmic horror, right, is knowledge, right?
yeah,
It's in the current day, whenever he pops up, people know about him. He doesn't really have the element of the unknown, right? There's no dread that really builds around him.
yeah, and they know how
But
to
the
do.
moment you remove him from like that context,
I think with that, as we talk about the excitement for ideas that DC will never do, DC call us. We are the most excited to write comics. Uh, I think that this has been a great discussion about like here villains breaking away, and we don't have an outro for this yet.
no,
So
we don't. We do not. So this has been the backup issue. Please check out the main episode. I think like we have like some really great discussions, and oddly enough, a lot of them did come back to Batman. Oopsie daisies.
and also thank you for joining us as we talk more. Thank you. Anything else?
Uh, we do not have an outro, but we do have a couple things to plug. So I'm Dynamite Miranda. You can find me as Dynamite Miranda on TikTok, Dinos and Dinosaur, Mighties and Mighty Mouse Miranda. That's my name. Don't wear it out. You can also find me as one half of the Sidekicks podcast. That is the Sidekicks, spelled TheSeidkicks. New episode drops pretty much every other week. Rena, where can people find you?
Hi, you can find me mostly on TikTok with the handle rock are free, no S. The S was taken. You can also find me streaming every Saturday at 9 p.m. EST on the Ash and the Fantastic Friends live stream on Twitch and YouTube. Ash Danger is the name of the channel. Thank you so much. And then we stream every other Sunday still
Yes.
currently, where we talk about comics decade by decade. It's become more of a general discussion of the slow trends of both Batman and Green Lantern are resident hyperfixations.
Oh, I like that resident hyperfixation. It makes it sound like they have a little contract.
Thank you so much for your time, and maybe next week we'll have an outro.